dangerous.
That dangerous. So he does all of that, and Rex Ryan still has a problem.
Over 500 kids showed up, coaches, parents, players, the whole community out there having the best day of their summer. And somehow that became a problem. Rex Ryan looked at a youth football camp and decided the word he wanted to use was dangerous. Not reckless, not risky. Dangerous. For a camp full of kids falling over each other laughing, doing backflips, getting autographs. Today, we're breaking down exactly what happened at Shedeur's camp, why Rex Ryan couldn't let it go, and why the people who were actually there are telling a completely different story. Let's start with what this camp actually was, because that matters before we get into any of the noise around it. This wasn't some quiet, low-key appearance. Shedeur put together a full-blown youth camp, and by the time it wrapped up, organizers were putting the number at over 500 kids on the field. Think about that for a second. 500 families who woke up, got their kid dressed, drove out, and spent their day at a football camp because a rookie quarterback decided to give his time to it. And this wasn't just Shedeur standing around signing a few autographs and leaving. People who were there described kids literally falling over each other trying to get close to him. There was cheering, there was music, there were backflips being thrown on the field. One clip shows a kid pulling off a full no-hands backflip after catching a low pass, and Shedeur's reaction says it all. He's standing there, kind of in disbelief, admitting he can't even do that himself anymore. That's not the energy of a guy doing a forced photo op. That's a guy who's actually locked in and enjoying it. What's easy to miss here is the timing. This camp didn't happen during some slow week where Shedeur had nothing else going on. It came right after he'd spent days working out with the entire Browns team, running routes with Dillon Gabriel, with Jerry Jeudy, with the young receiver room. So he goes from grinding with his own teammates straight into giving his time to kids in the community. Back to back, no days off built in for a rest and recharge, just straight from one commitment into the next. And when he was asked afterward what actually meant the most to him about the day, his answer wasn't about himself at all. He talked about the people behind the scenes, the coaches who organized it, the Browns Give Back program and the Winning Foundation for putting it together, the parents who brought their kids out. He specifically called out that it was never really about him. It was about giving back to a community that doesn't always get that kind of access. So that's the actual event. 500 plus kids, real energy, real turnouts, and a quarterback who by every account on the ground was locked in and having a genuinely good time with a community that supports him. Keep all of that in mind because it's about to run directly into a very different narrative from someone who wasn't even there.
My favorite part of the camp, I would say, was the people behind the scenes that helped put all this together. Coaches, a lot of the players, the kids, the parents.
Just a day or days after working out with the entire Cleveland Brown team, including Deshaun, Jerry Jeudy, all the young wide receivers, this is a different, more connected team. Shedeur Sanders takes time out of his day to continue giving back to the youth. Another youth camp for, oh wow, they're like falling over each other. Oh my God.
So with all of that on the field, what exactly is the problem here? Let's find out. Here's where it gets frustrating for a lot of people who actually watched this thing play out. Rex Ryan posted about the camp, and instead of anything close to congratulations, his word of choice was dangerous. A youth football camp. Kids doing drills and getting autographs and taking pictures with a quarterback who showed up for them. Dangerous. Now, to be fair, criticism of NFL players isn't some new thing, and it's not automatically unfair. Guys get criticized for play calling, for decision-making, for accuracy. All of that is part of the job. Nobody's saying Shedeur should be above football criticism, but there's a difference between breaking down his reads on tape and going after a kids' camp with a word that heavy. One of those is football analysis. The other one is character attack, and it's the second one that's been the actual pattern with Shedeur going back to last season. Because this isn't the first time. Go back to when he first got to Cleveland and remember how some of the coverage talked about him. It wasn't just his footwork needs work or he's holding the ball too long. A lot of it went straight at who he is as a person, like giving back to your community and having confidence in yourself is somehow a bad thing. And now here we are again, except this time the actual event people are reacting to is a camp for kids. Think about what it actually takes to fill a field with 500 kids and their families. That doesn't happen by accident. That takes real coordination with a real foundation, real outreach into the community, and a player who's actually willing to show up and put in the time on what should have been an off day. That's not a guy chasing headlines. That's a guy building something. And the thing is, most guys in this league who criticize don't have anywhere close to that kind of community turnout to point to themselves. It's a lot easier to tweet one word about somebody else's camp than it is to actually go put one together yourself. That's the part that gets lost every single time this cycle repeats. The people doing the criticizing rarely have 500 kids showing up for anything they've organized. So when the word dangerous gets attached to kids doing drills and getting excited to meet a player they look up to, it's worth asking what exactly the concern even is. Because from every angle we can see, from the footage, from the turnout, from the reaction of the kids themselves, there's nothing dangerous happening on that field. There's a rookie quarterback doing exactly what people usually say they want their athletes to do.
So, we're going to check in and see what this, because apparently people like Rex Ryan and even people like the Browns media is making them really upset. I have a direct quote from Rex Ryan that he tweeted out today, after seeing Shedeur host a youth camp. Rex Ryan has a problem, but the haters is always going to have a problem when they get dangerous. That dangerous. So first,
here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Hating on Shedeur has turned into its own business model. There's a phrase that gets used a lot around this whole situation, and it's blunt, but it's accurate. Shedeur is the algorithm, meaning anytime his name is attached to a headline, that headline moves. Clicks go up, views go up, engagement goes up. And once something becomes the algorithm, there's a very predictable side effect. People figure out they can make money off of it, and going negative is usually the fastest way to do that. That's really what's happening with a lot of this criticism. It's not actually about football. It's not actually about a youth camp being unsafe or badly run. It's about the fact that saying something negative about Shedeur gets attention right now, and attention is worth something. You can make a living hating on a guy who's out here hosting camps for kids that nobody even asks him to do. Over 500 of them showed up because he chose to put this together on his own time. And look, nobody's pretending Shedeur is perfect, or that he's going to single-handedly fix every issue athletes face when it comes to being role models. That's not the claim here. The claim is a lot simpler than that. Compare what he's actually doing to the alternative. You've got players around the league dealing with real off-field situations, real controversy, real headlines that have nothing to do with football. And then you've got Shedeur, whose biggest offense, according to public record, is a speeding ticket. That's it. That's the file. Meanwhile, he's out flying young quarterbacks out to get extra work in on his own time. He's organizing camps that pull in hundreds of kids from the community. He's building relationships with his own teammates specifically so the locker room chemistry is real instead of forced. Because, as he's put it himself, you don't walk into a new team and just start dictating things. You earn that respect first, and that takes time and real relationship building, not just talent. So when people want to talk about Shedeur, the conversation usually skips right past all of that. Nobody wants to lead with the community work or the way he's built trust with his teammates. It's easier to lead with a one-word tweet calling a kids camp dangerous, because that gets more reaction than actually acknowledging what he's doing off the field. And that's really the split here. On one side, you've got a guy consistently showing up and giving back. On the other side, you've got critics who profit off manufacturing a problem where the evidence says there isn't one.
He is the algorithm. And you can make a lot of money talking nasty on him. You can make a lot of money hating on a man who's hosting youth football camps when nobody asked him to. Over 500 kids there. He said, y'all gotta sit, y'all gotta chill. You trying to control them all. You can't control them. They see too, man. They see greatness in like, we gotta be honest when we have these conversations, right? This isn't, I'm not telling you Shedeur's gonna solve all the problems and he's the perfect role model. I'm not saying that, but all the role models that we have in the NFL.
Let's actually put the tweet next to the reality of what was happening on that field. So here's the full picture, laid out side by side. On one side, you've got Rex Ryan sitting behind a phone, scrolling on a Sunday, watching a quarterback give his time and his talent to hundreds of kids in his community, and deciding the right response to that is a tweet calling it dangerous. On the other side, you've got what was actually happening in real time on that field. Kids running drills, kids doing backflips, kids falling over each other trying to get close to a player they admire. Parents standing on the sideline watching their kids have one of the best days of their summer. That's the split. That's the entire argument in one comparison. A guy behind a screen typing one word against 500 families who showed up in person and lived the actual experience. And here's what really needs to be said plainly. The response to a rookie quarterback organizing a camp that pulls in that many kids should not be complicated. It should be congratulations. It should be recognition that a guy who didn't have to do any of this chose to do it anyway, on time that could have gone toward rest, toward recovery, toward literally anything else after a full week of team workouts. Instead, the reaction from a former head coach was to reach for the word dangerous. What makes this frustrating is how predictable the pattern has become. Every time Shedeur does something positive, there's a wave of people ready to find an angle to spin it negative. It happened with how he was covered as a rookie, it's happening now with a kids camp. And every single time, the actual facts on the ground tell a completely different story than the headline being pushed. The real story here isn't complicated. A quarterback who just finished a demanding week with his own team turned around and gave his next chunk of time to his community. He showed up, he engaged, he made it about the kids and the coaches and the parents instead of about himself. That's what actually happened at that camp. Everything else being said about it is noise layered on top of a genuinely good event. So when you hear people trying to twist a youth camp into some kind of controversy, it's worth remembering what was actually on that field. 500 plus kids, real excitement, real community turnout, and a player who keeps showing up for it, criticism or not.
This is actually Rex Ryan's, this is his account. This is Rex Ryan's Twitter account. 19 hours ago, Shedeur had been doing nothing but working out with his teammates and giving back to young kids, hosting a camp for young kids. He does all of that, and Rex Ryan still has a problem. And my problem with you, Rex Ryan.
So you tell us, because from where we're sitting, the footage speaks for itself. Let's recap where this actually stands. Shedeur hosted a youth camp that pulled in over 500 kids, backed by the Browns Give Back program and the Winning Foundation. The energy on that field was real. Kids running drills, doing backflips, cheering, parents watching their families get an experience most of them wouldn't otherwise have access to. This came directly after Shedeur spent days grinding through workouts with his own teammates, so there was no built-in rest before he turned around and gave his time to the community instead. Then you've got the other side of it, Rex Ryan looking at all of that and landing on the word dangerous. Not addressing anything about the actual event, not pointing to a single specific issue with how it was run, just a one-word shot at something hundreds of families showed up and enjoyed in person. And when you zoom out, this fits a pattern that's followed Shedeur since he entered the league. Real accomplishments, real community impact, real relationship building with his teammates, and a steady stream of criticism that often has very little to do with football and a lot to do with attention. The gap between what's actually happening and what's being said about it keeps getting wider, and this camp is just the latest example of that gap on full display. At the end of the day, the tape doesn't lie. 500 plus kids on a field, laughing, competing, meeting a player who chose to be there, that's what actually happened. A tweet calling that dangerous doesn't change what hundreds of families experienced in person, and it doesn't change what Shedeur's actually building, both with his community and with his own locker room. So here's the real question for you. Do you think this criticism is actually about football and player conduct, or do you think it's just about generating reaction off Shedeur's name? Drop your answer in the comments. We want to see where everyone lands on this one. Smash like and subscribe.